Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Contraband, written by LgFatherAnthrocite. Bill sat in the cafeteria, looking down at the plastic tray that held the remnants of his lunch. A half-eaten pile of lettuce, a few bread crusts, a core of a mealy apple, a dry, dull, uninspiring meal. Like most aspects of life on board the ship, it left him feeling vaguely dissatisfied. He wasn't hungry, but he hadn't enjoyed it either. He was glad they were finally going to make orbit in a Terran system. He needed to get some supplies.
Billy, my man, where are you headed, bro? Bill's shoulders hunched slightly at the sound of the voice.
Hey, Sherm, I'm heading to the concourse to do some shopping.
Man, Shapir's got everything you need, replied Sherma.
I'm looking for some personal items, Bill said, starting to edge away.
Oh, cool, bro, cool. Well, have fun. Hey, do me a favor and snag me a candy bar if you see one, will you?
Sherma took the hint and let Bill make his escape without much more fuss. Bill couldn't help notice the smile drop a little on his face, though. Sure thing, Sherm. Nougat or caramel? Bill said, glad that he'd gotten out of the tag-along.
Surprise me.
Sherma waved and headed off.
Is there anything else I can get you?
Asked the girl behind the counter as she started to ring up a pile of stuff Bill had dumped on the counter. I think this is everything, Bill replied. After ringing up half a dozen items, she grabbed a small compad and contacted a co-worker.
Rachel, can you bring number 12 special to aisle 3? Thanks.
She continued ringing up the items and bagging them. As she was finishing, another older woman dropped a small box on the counter. As she turned to go, she smiled and winked at Bill. The girl rang up the last of the items Bill had selected, and then the box Rachel had dropped off.
This is a dehumidifier. Wherever you set it up, use this to keep it from getting too moist. Is that everything?
Bill was suddenly very embarrassed and shifted his gaze away from her towards a rack of candy next to the register. He grabbed a handful of candy bars and passed them to her, along with a handful of credits. Just this, thanks. She handed him his change.
Have a nice day, she said.
Bill grabbed his bags and hurried back to the ship.
Dude, what the hell have you been up to? Sherma asked at the lunch one day.
Huh? What? Bill asked.
Ever since we hit port 2 months ago, you've been acting weird. You scarf your food and bolt, and you're never in the berth unless it's lights out. You hooking up with Chavez?
Chavez? What? No, man, what? Chavez? No. Why? Did she say something? Bill asked, suddenly very flustered.
It's pretty obvious, dude. You've been after her since a week out of home base, Sherma said.
Bill looked down at his barely eaten meal, another uninspiring protein-paste sandwich and bland salad. Chavez was another crew member who worked in admin. Bill was smitten after meeting her while dealing with some issues on her terminal. He took every opportunity to work with her he could. There were a few chances to socialize on ship, but occasionally they would see one another on shore leave. She was always surrounded by a group of other female friends, and Bill never got to do more than wave to her across the bar. Nah, not Chavez, I wish, he said glumly. He stood up and grabbed his tray. He started towards the trash chute near the door and never responded to Sherma as the other man called to him from the table. Bill was walking towards one of the least used areas of the ship. He rounded a corner, and there, standing in front of his secret locker, was Sherma. Bill stopped dead in his tracks.
Dude, what the fuck are you up to? Sherma asked.
What? Nothing. What are you talking about?
You're a terrible fucking liar. Open this thing up right now and tell me what you're doing, or I will call security.
Dude, come on, Bill protested.
I'm not taking a hint from my roommate if you're getting into some questionable crap. I need to know what is going on now, Sherma said.
Fine, just calm down. It's not a big deal. Bill pulled the key out and unlocked the storage locker. He opened the door and moved back so Sherma could see inside.
Sweet mother of Christ, man, how long have you been doing this? Look at the size of this thing. Is that a dehumidifier? What the fuck? You're fucking mad genius.
Sherma's head bobbled around, taking in all the details. No one finds out about this, and I'll hook you up, bro, Bill said.
Fucking deal,
Sherma replied as Bill swung the door shut.
Billy, how are you? Chavez asked as Bill came into the small cubicle.
I am awesome. Things are going good, Bill said as Chavez stood up from her terminal.
Nice,
Chavez said with a smile. Bill sat at the terminal and after a few questions back and forth started to resolve the problem Chavez had encountered. As he was digging into system menus and settings, he bantered back and forth with the pretty, olive-skinned, dark-haired woman. She was petite, so even though they were in a tight spot, it wasn't crowded.
So what's got you in such a good mood? Chavez asked. New girlfriend?
What? Nah, no girlfriend. Just in a good mood. You reap what you sow, right? He looked a little panicked and returned his attention to the screen. Is this the error you were getting? He asked. She leaned in, one hand on his shoulder. The tannic, herbal smell of her shampoo washed over him, and he tensed up just a little.
Yep, that's what I was doing,
she said, turning to look at him for a moment. They looked into each other's eyes, just inches away. Bill held his breath, thinking what a deep shade of green her eyes were. He felt the immense weight of her small hand on his shoulder. After an intense and terrible internal struggle, he turned away slowly. I can fix this in just a minute, he began, clicking and typing, as the weight of her hand moved slowly from his shoulder to the base of his neck, and then to his far shoulder. He felt the whole right side of his body catch fire as she slowly leaned sideways against him. Everywhere she made contact, he could feel her warmth. She looked at the screen, watching as he resolved the issue that she had encountered. He felt the weight of her, pulling him like a neutron star, as he struggled not to look up from his work. Finally, mercifully, he finished. He looked up at her and said, "You should be good to go." She smiled down at him. His heart felt like it might jump out of his mouth at any moment.
Thanks so much, I owe you one.
The weight of her hand, the only thing keeping him from floating off, lifted from his shoulder. He rose slowly from the chair. He stood back and swung it around and offered it to her to sit in. "It's no big deal," he said as she sat on the chair. He looked down into the deep forest green eyes that enchanted him and said, "If you need anything else, just let me know." She smiled at him, and he backed a step away, a smile slowly spreading across his lips.
"Anything?"
"I can't make any promises, but I'll do whatever I can," he said.
"I bet you say that to all the girls,"
she said with a slight pout, wheeling her chair back into position in front of the terminal. He had moved to the doorway, and he stopped, took one last into those eyes. "Only you," he said softly, and then started off down the hall, not able to stand there any more for fear that she might notice how he blushed.
"Is this seat taken?"
said a familiar feminine voice. Bill looked up from his lackluster lunch yesterday into deep green pools. Chavez stood opposite him at the table holding a tray. "It is now," he said, motioning for her to sit. She smiled and set a tray down and sat facing him. She looked at the food on her tray and said, "I would kill for some real food. First thing I do whenever I hit port, I find the nearest taqueria and get some tacos. This stuff is, meh." She poked at the iceberg lettuce with a fork. Bill looked at her slumped shoulders and stood up. "Come with me." He picked up his tray and started for the door. She looked up, a little confused. He turned back and waved for her to follow. Intrigued, she stood up, taking her tray as well. He dumped his food into the trash and set the tray on top of the cabinet. This stood to the side, holding the swinging door of the trash receptacle open so that she could do the same. He led her to the lower deck in a disused part of the ship, mostly just maintenance access. In a small room was a storage locker. Bill pulled out a key and opened the locker. On the shelves were row after row of plants. The underside of each shelf was coated with LED strips giving off a purplish light. "I have tomatoes, zucchini, bell peppers, and microgreens. That bottom shelf is my roommate's, so it's off limits. But you can have anything else you want." Her mouth hung open. The smell of fresh veggies and naturally recycled air hit her like a truck. She looked at the red tomatoes, the orange and red peppers, the greens. She started to salivate.
"Oh my God, are you serious?"
"Yes."
"Oh, I could kiss you."
"I wish you would," he replied.
She swiveled her head to face him. "Is that the cost here?"
she asked, suddenly chilly. "What? No, oh God, no," Bill said, backing up. "No, I just, oh no, you can eat whatever you want. I was hoping you might actually kiss me." His brow wrinkled and he frowned. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it that way." Really? She asked. I thought after the thing in your cubicle, and then you sat at my table at lunch and everything, I was wrong, clearly. But that's not why. I just was trying to make you happy. It wasn't, Oh, God damn it. He slid down the wall to the floor, his head bowed down. He heard her moving things around and cutting free some small veggies. The locker door closed. He waited for the footsteps to fade away as she left, but instead they got closer, right next to him. He heard her slide down the wall next to him. Hey, look at me, please, she said. He looked up slowly. The deep-sea green eyes shone in the reddish light. He felt his breath catch in his throat again. You, weren't wrong, she whispered, and she leaned in and kissed him, softly, on the cheek. They walked slowly back to the mess hall, pinky fingers joined. They had sat quietly for a while, leaning against one another, and then silently shared the fresh food that she had gathered. They locked up the mini farm. He smiled broadly, and she grinned as well. As they headed to the mess, they started to talk, make plans to meet, and by the time they had arrived back, their time was nearly up. Just before they parted ways, she said, Why is it all the way down there? He grinned and said, You aren't supposed to have any unauthorized food production facilities on board. It's a rule they put in place to keep people from making moonshine. Technically, it's contraband. End of story. I would just like to thank the T5 supporters. Bushmaster 117, Casper Arnholtz, Draxzoon WRE, Elijah Silvercross, Gray, John Carrington, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.